Stocks, bonds, ETFs, straight out of downtown Chicago. This is Zach's Market Edge.
Welcome to Zach's Market Edge, the podcast about investing in your life. I'm your host, Tracy Reineck, and this week I'm pleased to welcome Associate Stock Strategist Derek Lewis for his very first podcast here at Zach's, or basically ever. So Derek is part of GenZ, and that's why I wanted to have him on, because we haven't talked to anyone from GenZ in quite a while here on the podcast. If you recall, if you've been listening for numerous years, I used to get Zach's interns. We had summer interns prior to the pandemic, and I used to get Zach's interns if they were Gen Z, although some of them were youngest millennials back in the day. But the Gen Zers, I used to snag in to talk about what was going on with them and their peers with investing, what stocks they liked. And if you remember, I used to talk about the Robinhood app all the time, because Robinhood was fairly new 5-6 years ago. And, we were all interested in it. Are the young people using this? Will it increase investing for young people? Will they like stocks after using this? But then we had the pandemic, and Robinhood, of course, became even more popular. So now with the Gen Zs like Derek, it's a little bit more difficult to just be like, hey, are you using this app? Because they are. But I still have some good questions about Robinhood, investing, about all these things. So welcome, Derek. Welcome to your first podcast.
Hey, Tracy. Thanks for the welcome. I'm super glad to be here. As Tracy said, I'm Derek Lewis, a relatively new member here at Zach, so this will be the first time you heard me. I'm kind of a senior Gen Z, or I guess I could say. I graduated West Virginia University in 2020, and I'm 24 years old now, so I'm definitely on the upper end of the spectrum of the generation, but I'm still classified in there.
You are. I think that the oldest Gen Z, now it varies depending on where you look, where the cutoff is, always on these things, but I saw that the oldest Gen Zs are now 26. And so that means the millennials are now 27 to 43. Wow. So all these people who keep thinking, oh, those millennials, they're like, still in school and all that stuff. That is wrong. Gen Z is now the younger group, but now heading towards 30, even for the Gen Zs. So, I think it's important too, Derek, that you just mentioned that you're, you just graduated a couple of years ago. And so now you are part of that generation that's like working their first jobs and all the things that entails. And that's important too for us to discuss today. So maybe we should start on that actually, and not the Robinhood app, but I do want to ask about the Robinhood app later. But you and I chatted offline recently about Gen Z and their retirement plans. So I'm been shocked to see over the last couple of months that there's been a lot of studies coming out about Gen Z and that your savings. And apparently you are maybe the best generation we've had yet on saving for retirement. So I saw some stats. I saw a study from BlackRock that said that Gen Zs are saving 14% of their salary. All the older generations are saving only 12%. Then I saw another study that said it's like 20% of the people they studied for the Gen Zs, and that 67% of those who are offered a retirement plan, like a 401k through work, are actually using it. So that seems like a really high number for a young person. It's just all anecdotal with you, Derek, because it's just you and your friends and
Right.
what you all are doing. But is there a real focus amongst you and your friends on retirement and savings and all of that, even at your younger age?
Yeah, I would say so. I kind of want to peel it back a little bit to the environment that we were kind of raised in. We kind of got I was a little young whenever the Great Recession hit, but I was still old enough to realize what had happened and all that stuff. So we grew up in the midst of that. And then essentially now, like you said, not many people realize this, but we are entering the workforce now. So we're kind of synergizing with the millennials now. And now, essentially, the pandemic just hit as soon as most of us have graduated. So now I feel like we kind of have a more, we want to take more risk off the table just because we've seen these real events unfold twice now, just in, one small lifetime. So I feel like it kind of, we err on the side of caution a little bit more just because, we just don't want it to happen to us so early.
Okay. So does that translate over to how you invest for those of you who are on the Robinhood app? I'm assuming is that the most popular place for you guys to be investing, is Robinhood?
Yeah, by a pretty wide margin. I think I just saw a study. 70% of us use Robinhood. Personally, when I first started, that was my first account. Mainly because the other ones were just too complicated. They felt overwhelming. The simplistic design of Robinhood was just that was really it, and that's what sold me. A great first step for a lot of people who had never any idea. And I actually have some interesting statistics here. 35% of us invest in mutual funds versus 47% of millennials. 15% of Gen Z invests in ETFs versus 23% of millennials. And then about half of us own crypto. And then on a sector level, the most widely held was financial services, which I found pretty surprising. 42% of Gen Z apparently own that. And then, of course, followed by technology at 40%, and then emerging technology at 40%. So I wouldn't necessarily say our investments are more conservative at this time, but I do feel like we're just more into the game, and we would kind of want to, we want the riskier stuff now just for the returns later.
So just some of that does surprise me. Only 15% are in ETFs. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that was
okay.
surprising to me too.
So you don't want to buy lists like the Qs or, some broad index or something like that, but you also still don't want to buy, like the more focused niche ones. But I wonder what percentage of those are like Cathie Wood's ARK.
I would imagine probably a fair percentage of them are, especially just, for growth strategy, especially. And that's what pretty much all of our generation loves so far.
Right. So I bet she has a big chunk of that, or ARKK in general, even just her flagship. Financial services, though, that's an interesting one. So do you think that's people buying like PayPal, share stock, Square, or Block, or whatever it's called now?
Yeah.
Those types of companies, or even Robinhood itself, maybe Hood.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, pretty much our generation, we don't want to write checks anymore. We don't want to walk into a bank and transfer money. We just want to be able to open up our phone and send money to our friend whenever we need to. So I feel like we see the need of, how important it is to be able to do that stuff. And so we pretty much invested in it as well, because we know that's just the easier way. It's more efficient, and it's just better for everybody.
So you like buying what you know? Is that what one of your strategies is?
Yeah, essentially, yes.
Does that translate on the tech side then to like what device you use? So if you, I know a lot of Gen Zs have basically grown up using Apple because that was just like the popular phone that you had to have in like junior high and high school and college and then beyond, basically. So do people want to buy the Apple stock because they use that phone every single day?
Yeah, I do feel like it's kind of like a preference, almost like a tunnel vision in a way, because like you said, we grew up, I can't remember the last time I didn't have a phone in my hand. It probably have to go way back to elementary school, but it's just, it's in the palm of our hand every second, every day. And so we're always on there. And that's just pretty much when we know how big of it is, and it's just, that's what we like, essentially. I don't know how to explain it. We're pretty much raised in this digital gold rush era of stuff, and it's all we've ever known.
Now, what about some of the stocks that are like the gambling type stocks? Like I'm thinking like DraftKings. Does Gen Z have any interest because everything is done on their phone and all of that? Are these the types of companies too that are more attractive to the Gen Zers?
Yeah, I think they were more attractive, just because of just the growth and how much gambling has really picked up and stuff. From an investment standpoint, I can't say that I see a lot of interest in investing in the actual, DraftKings or stuff like that, but rather it's just we enjoy the gambling itself, and that's kind of what we see as fun. We don't necessarily see the stock as an investment. We just see it as leisure or stuff like that.
What about social media? You guys have basically grown up on it much more so than the millennials ever did. It was basically launched during their school years and stuff, but you guys already basically had it in place. And I know when Facebook went public about 11 years now, a lot of people wanted to buy the Facebook stock because they were all using it, or their parents were on it, Gen Xers or, baby boomers were all on there. And they all thought this is going to get me rich if I buy Facebook. But now Facebook is Meta platforms, ticker Meta, and a lot has changed with social media. Is there any desire to actually own social media platforms as a stock amongst your generation, like there was when Facebook first went public?
I feel like there's just because of how often we use social media, I feel like there's definitely an interest in owning it, because here's actually another pretty interesting statistic. Gen Z investors were nearly 5 times as likely to report that they got financial advice from social media as adults aged 41 and over. So just based on that alone, I feel like there's way more to social media than just, checking in on your friends and seeing what they're doing. Many of us, that's pretty much our news sources, essentially. So it kind of opens the book of really, everything will eventually be on social media. And that's pretty much the hub for everybody now. We all see it.
So do you use TikTok?
I am not a TikTok user. I believe that I just missed that wave. Actually, there was an even personally, I think, better app, a short video app back in the day, and it was called Vine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that released whenever I think I was a freshman in high school. So that was about 2012. And so I was on there, and I found that super interesting and cool. But now I'm older, so I don't find that side of social media too entertaining. But pretty much everybody I know has the app, and they use it daily.
Yeah. Which one do people get financial advice and, from? I know it is big on TikTok. There's a lot of personal financer people over there on TikTok. But is it YouTube? Is it Reddit? Is it, Instagram even? Or is it Twitter? There is stock twits, but that's, more just stock specific. But, where is it? Where are people going?
Yeah, Gen Z kind of really made the whole Reddit channel very popular with the meme stock craze. So I would say there's definitely some value to that. There's several forums and stuff where people, obviously, they talk about stocks and stuff and information. But Twitter, too, I would say Twitter has always felt more of a quick news site rather than a social media entertainment. So I feel like that has more friction to it than, say, Instagram or something. But I've also seen people with YouTube channels as well, creating their own content videos, walking through charts and stuff. So I feel like it's used in definitely several different social media platforms, but Twitter is probably the most prevalent, I would say.
Okay. By the way, I'm just going to put a plug in there. If you are listening to this podcast, you can find us on YouTube. We have a whole podcast channel for Zacks on YouTube, but many of our podcasts are also on our normal channel. You can find it at Zacks.com. It's ZACKS.com/YouTube. If you don't want to just go into YouTube and find it, but you do have to search for Zacks podcasts. You can find it that way. But, subscribe to get all of our podcasts, not just mine, but Nina's great ETF podcasts and everything else that we're doing on the podcast side. You can get them all on YouTube. So I love YouTube. I'm a big fan of YouTube myself. And I do find it a good place to get some personal finance advice, and there's a lot of people on there about like, how to get passive income. And I know a lot of the dividend types of investor people are over there. What about dividends for Gen Zs? Like Gen Xers, which I am, we didn't really care about dividend paying stocks because we came of age in the, .com boom. We wanted Microsoft and Dell and all these companies. None of them paid dividends. And then we had the financial crisis where if we owned a bank, it didn't go under, they cut the dividends. So we didn't even get a dividend with that one. And so we just kind of wrote off dividends over the years, it seems. But they seem to be back in a big way. And I do see a lot of younger people espousing them either on Twitter or, on YouTube as like passive income and a way to get these checks sent to you. So what do you and your friends think about dividends? Do you seek out dividend paying stocks now?
Well, the majority of our generation, the order of popularity is like growth and then dividends and then value. So I would say like, there's a fair amount of interest in it. Really, it's just our generation, a lot of the dividend paying stocks, they're the well-established, mature companies. We don't find them too interesting. So they don't really pique our interest. We want to find the Teslas, the Shopify, stuff like that. But last year, especially after last year, I feel like a lot more of us have kind of recalibrated our expectations and kind of came back to the idea of, dividends are, they're nice. It's a passive income stream, and it's just it's a lot safer than the tech that we've been used to.
I've noticed that companies like Starbucks that does pay the dividends seem to be pretty popular with the Gen Z that I see on Twitter posting about dividends, even though their yield on Starbucks isn't all that great now because the stock has surged. So I think it's in the 2s somewhere. It used to be in the 3s, which isn't terrible, but it's not like this massive dividend that you're getting in. But, that's one of the stocks I'm assuming Gen Z, they use it, they go to the Starbucks. So they're like, hey, why not buy this stock and get some money from them at the same time? Are there any others that you can think of that are kind of like a Starbucks that, maybe people might be buying that's outside of tech because they're using the product?
Yeah, there's actually, that kind of goes back to your earlier point of, we do like to kind of buy the products that we know in a way. CHWY was actually a pretty good example of this. I have several friends that buy CHWY because, they get the monthly BARK boxes and they like them. And so they think it's a good product and a good business model and stuff. And so they kind of just invest in what they like. So I think CHWY would probably be another good example of that. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I do know that for sure.
That is interesting. Yeah, that makes sense on that one. Do they pay a dividend? I'm looking right now. Oh, no, CHWY does not. It's CHWY. There was another one, but I'm thinking of the one where you can get your pet medication sent to you. Forget the name of that company. They pay a bigger dividend, but I wasn't sure how safe that one was. But anyways, so CHWY, no dividend, but it makes sense buying what you know. Back in the day, we used to buy pets.com where the stuff was shipped to us. That was basically the CHWY of the .com boom was pets.com, and people loved it. So it makes sense that, that would be back in favor. What about travel stocks? Anything, and just travel in general with Gen Zs? We've had the pandemic. It really hit on everybody on the travel side, but certainly you guys, starting your first jobs and all of that, or even, impacting like going on spring break while you're in school or whatever, you couldn't do some of these things. Is travel high on the list for Gen Zs going forward here?
I feel like it would be a temporary, a bucket list thing, just because we, coming out of these lockdowns the past 2 years, we didn't really get to go anywhere. So I would say that there's like a quick fix for the travel demand for us, because I definitely would like to travel somewhere. I haven't been anywhere in a long time. So I do feel like there's definitely a need for travel. And a lot of us do work remotely too, so that kind of opens the floodgates for traveling anywhere. So I do think that we enjoy, being able to go around the world and seeing new experiences and stuff for sure.
Do you guys use the travel apps like Expedia and Booking to book your travel, or do you go direct, like just on the Airbnb sites or on like the hotel sites direct? Is online booking still the thing?
I've only ever booked stuff online, and that's pretty much the same thing with my friends. That's why it's like everything is just, it's either an app. If it's not an app, it's a website for us, pretty much. We're not interested in going in somewhere physically and doing stuff or, other things.
Yeah, that makes sense. And, some of those apps have been around 20 plus years now. So that's just how it's been done. That's just how it is. Okay. And I have one more question on like a sector area. So cannabis stocks were real hot a couple of years ago, especially for millennials, but a lot of states have either, legalized it for medical purposes or recreational or both now. It's still not legalized federally, obviously, but the cannabis stocks have kind of gone out of favor because it's just kind of an everyday thing now. Doesn't seem that strange when, cities have dispensaries now and whatnot. But as an investment, does Gen Z have any interest in cannabis stocks or, investing in it? Or is that passé now? Is that off?
I wouldn't say it's passé. It's definitely something that's becoming more popular. As you mentioned, of course, it's becoming more and more legal in more states. So it's definitely something that we see, I feel like. Okay. Mainly, I can't remember. Oh, it was Sundial a few years ago during the meme stock craze. Sundial Growers, I believe the ticker is SNDL. It went crazy and it ran up pretty good. And I remember that one caught a lot of attention and actually got several of my friends asking for other different types of investments for cannabis. But past that initial run-up of Sundial a few years ago, there hasn't been a lot of interest, but I feel like we definitely recognize the trajectory of it for sure.
Okay, so there is still interest there. Yeah. What about the meme stocks? We've kind of chatted about them a little bit so far, but there's like GameStop, Bed Bath & Beyond is still out there, AMC. Is that just like a fun trade for Gen Zs? Does anyone, it's a way to make money, obviously, if you get the trade right, but does anyone care other than that?
Yeah, no, the casino type action was really the only thing I feel like they were interested in. I actually did see, I think only 40% of Gen Z own a meme stock.
Wow.
Which is, I don't know if that's high or low, but either way.
Wait, 40% of Gen Zs who are investing or have a trading account own a meme stock?
Yes, have it, yeah.
Wow. So, that's high.
Yeah, so there's definitely an interest, but the craze has definitely died down. The get rich quick scheme was kind of shut down pretty quickly last year. So I feel like there was definitely another reassessment of ideas, so to say, and the interest has definitely died off. But there are some still in that camp that wanted to, but it's all for the casino type of action. There's hardly any fundamentals driving their beliefs and stuff.
Now, do you think Gen Zs are disenchanted with the stock market after last year's sell-off? Because for some people, that was like the first sell-off they've ever really been in. Even, many maybe weren't even investing during the pandemic, the initial sell-off during the pandemic. And that one was just 3 weeks and then it rebounded kind of quickly. Did last year's sell-off, sour anybody, do you think?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Myself included. I know in 2021 it was great. Pretty much everything was green. It was the paradise pretty much. And then in 2022, of course, the musical chairs kind of stopped, and people were kind of just left reassessing everything. So I definitely feel like a lot of people kind of just threw the hat, in the arena there and just gave up on it. But I didn't trade nearly as much in 2022 as I did in 2021, mainly just because I wasn't comfortable with it. And being so just relatively new to the market in general, I wasn't comfortable with all going on and stuff. So I feel like there was definitely a lot of shared feelings around that sentiment. And we just kind of dialed it back a lot this year or for last year. But now I have noticed that some of my friends are asking me about stocks now that we're rebounding. So,
Okay. I like these stories because that's like, that's the play once you start having friends or family start asking about it. Or you go to like the barbecue and they're like, hey, what about this? Yeah, and we're getting some animal spirits back in the market.
oh yeah, absolutely. There's definitely some newfound interest, especially if the rally can sustain itself here. It'll probably be a nice welcome development among our generation, to say the least. Especially 2021 was just so amazing. It's just hard to follow up 2021 the way 2022 went.
Right. Now, what are they asking you about?
Pretty much, really. I had a friend the other day. He asked me about a used car dealership because apparently one of his companies was working with them. I think it was Car Parts. I think it's carparts.com. Yeah, CPRT maybe the ticker.
Yeah.
He asked me about that one a few weeks ago, and that was about it. And then I remember around New Year's, I did have someone asking me about Tesla because they had that big sell-off going into the end of the new year. But it's just really, that's two more questions than pretty much all I got throughout 2022. So it's
right.
It's trending in the right direction.
That's interesting. The car parts I thought it was what you said, but it's actually PRTS.
Oh.
It's that one. Someone else must have the other one with the car in there. But car parts is PRTS. Yeah, a good way to find where to invest and investment ideas is through like your daily life and like what your job is and who you encounter. And, I took my car in and it cost me this much money, or I had to wait, 8 months to get my house built because they're so busy, or whatever it is. Like that can give you some eyes on like what's actually going on in certain industries. And especially if you actually work in that industry and, have some behind the scenes kind of insights into how busy things might be, or, how good business might be right now. So that's always a good way. Yeah. Okay. So things don't seem too gloomy for Gen Zs.
I don't think so. No, I think the future's bright for us. We've been dealt a rough hand here at the beginning of 2020 with the pandemic, but things are looking for sure. We're going to be the biggest generation by, I believe, 2030 or 2032, I believe. So we'll be pretty much fully mixed in together with the millennials, which will be great for the economy and good synergy. But past that, I remain confident. I remain optimistic as well.
Yeah, me too. Especially hearing about, how many of you are saving for the retirement already at such an early age. That's amazing, because the younger you start, the better off you're going to be when you reach the older ages, just because of the compounding nature of investing, and you have time on your side. So, and true, even in your own personal account. So if you are buying those dividend stocks and you start compounding those, in like 4 or 5 years is when I always start to see a real difference in the dividends. Like you might be like, oh, I'm getting $10. But after year 5, when it's now $20 or, possibly more, you start to kind of notice it more that, hey, this thing's actually paying me some decent money. So keep that in mind, all of you Gen Zers out there. You have time on your side that the rest of us don't have. So, and it sounds like you're using it to your advantage. Well, thank you, Derek, and welcome. And I will honestly have you on another episode where we're not just talking about you being a Gen Z, because I know that you have interests in various other areas too. We can chat about other things. So you will return. And for everybody listening, I'm going to cover some of the tickers we did talk about. So we did mention Robinhood. It's, the app everybody is using. You can actually buy the stock. It's ticker HOOD. He mentioned Car Parts. That ticker again is PRTS. We did mention CHWY. That ticker is CHWY. he mentioned that cannabis stock that was popular with the memesters. I think maybe they might have changed their name from the Sundial, but they were Sundial, but their ticker is still SNDL, but the name of the company now is just SNDL. Sounds kind of like slick or whatever with that just the ticker like that. But I did scroll down to see when I put that ticker in that they are in the cannabis industry, because you never know. People can like change names or, have a weird thing and it might not be who you think it is, but they are in the cannabis industry. So S as in Sam, NDL is the ticker with that one. We did mention Apple because how can you not? Everybody's using it. Everybody has the phone. AAPL is the ticker there, as everyone knows. Meta, we mentioned that one. That's still out there on the social media side and the metaverse, which we didn't really talk about. Then PayPal and Block, as it's now called, PYPL, but they're still using Square because another company has the Block ticker. And apparently they have not convinced them yet to get it, I guess. And then ARKK, we mentioned Kathy Woods could still be popular with the Gen Zers because they do own some ETFs. And I do have a feeling that ARKK is probably among those that they own. So that covers most of the stocks we kind of just mentioned. You can get a good idea of maybe what Gen Z is interested in just even from that list. And it's not that different from what millennials or the older generations might be interested in as well, but a lot of technology and then some of these new emerging areas, emerging industries. But don't count out those dividends either. We didn't really mention, well, I guess I did mention Starbucks, SBUX. That pays a nice dividend, and it does seem like a lot of Gen Zers own Starbucks for that dividend and because they use the product. So that's quite a list, and you want to be sure to get us somewhere. If you're not getting us on YouTube for the podcast, you can also get us on Apple. Most of the Gen Zers are listening to us on Apple Podcasts, I'm sure, but we are on Spotify. That would probably be the second most popular, and we're also on Amazon Music. I have no idea how many of you are on Amazon Music, but we are on there if that's your place for podcasts. But get us somewhere, and I'll see you again next time with some more stocks.
This material is being provided for informational purposes only, and nothing herein constitutes investment, legal, accounting, or tax advice, or a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold a security. Do not act or rely upon the information and advice given in this podcast without seeking the services of competent and professional legal, tax, or accounting counsel. Publication and distribution of this podcast is not intended to create, and the information contained herein does not constitute an attorney-client relationship. No recommendation or advice is being given as to whether any investment or strategy is suitable for a particular investor. It should not be assumed that any investments in securities, companies, sectors, or markets identified and described were or will be profitable. All information is current as of the date herein and is subject to change without notice. Any views or opinions expressed may not reflect those of Zacks Investment Research as a whole.